Bring you all of those developments from the conclave once it gets started and until we see that white smoke signalling that the new Pope has been chosen. We move on now, and as Russia and Ukraine continue to trade aerial drone attacks, the Kremlin said that many flights are cancelled, relaying travel chaos ahead of the Victory Day parade in Moscow. The Kremlin also said it was taking all necessary measures, including restricting mobile internet access to ensure its flagship Victory Day parade is safe. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is urging more pressure on Russia. He demands tougher sanctions to force diplomacy forward. This comes in response to the Russian missile and drone strikes in Kyiv early this morning. The strike left 2 people dead and 7 injured, according to local authorities. Several children are among the injured. Ukraine also responded with drone attacks on Moscow and surrounding areas. Russian officials say more than 140 airborne threats were shot down. Airports across the capital were shot down overnight for the 3rd night in a row. Meanwhile, Chinese President Xi Jinping has arrived in Moscow for a 4-day visit to Russia. For a high-stakes visit, he will meet President Vladimir Putin and attend the Victory Parade Day. The visit signals a deepening alliance amid growing tensions with the West. The Kremlin has touted Xi's presence along with 28 other world leaders. Moscow wants the world to know that Russia has not been isolated since the conflict started. In related news, Joe Biden, the former president of the United States, has accused Donald Trump of modern-day appeasement in his approach to Russia and expressed fears that Europe would lose confidence in the uncertainty of America. He said this in his first interview since leaving the White House. Moscow has also released a sharp diplomatic statement around international ties, saying there's no reason to expect improved ties with Germany under Chancellor Friedrich Merz, criticising Berlin's stance on military aid to Ukraine. Well, joining us to discuss all of these developments as Russia gets ready for its Victory Day celebrations is Ross Feingold, a political risk analyst who is joining us from Taipei. Ross, thank you ever so much for being here. Let's first talk about these overnight strikes that have been traded by Russia and Ukraine, specifically targeting the capital cities. Do you think this is a calm before the storm ahead of the Victory Day celebrations, or will both countries continue throughout this 3-day period that was touted by Vladimir Putin for a ceasefire?
There's another way to look at it. More so than a 3-day ceasefire is the potential for a longer ceasefire, and both sides are posturing in advance of that. Obviously, reaching a 30-day or even longer ceasefire is an extraordinarily difficult task, but those talks are ongoing, with the Trump administration still periodically sending its emissaries to meet with President Putin as well as to meet with President Zelensky. So the truth is, we don't really know what the motivation is for each side to be attacking the other side's capital at the moment. Obviously, Moscow, Russia, they're going to proceed with this parade. They certainly don't want the parade to be attacked, or should there be any drone attacks on Moscow while the parade is ongoing. That would be extraordinarily embarrassing for Russia, and it will probably be detrimental to the possibility of any ceasefire talks as well. So I think Ukraine recognizes that, and at least in the coming hours, or while the parade is actually occurring, they'll probably hold back from attacks on Moscow.
Yes, Ross, I want to look at Joe Biden's interview that he has held and some of the comments that he's made, specifically looking at appeasement, which he's accused Donald Trump of, also saying that Russia are keen to absorb the whole of Ukraine. What do you think Joe Biden's motive is in these comments, and do you think that they may be detrimental to the ongoing peace efforts that the US are helping to broker?
Certainly, former President Biden is concerned with his own legacy, and his legacy is one of support for Ukraine. Weapons, of course, financial assistance, working with Western European countries to support Ukraine. Some people, they're angry at the speed. We had those many times where initially the Biden administration would deny certain weapon systems or restrict their use. And eventually the Biden administration would relent, and some people would say that was too long in coming. But mostly Biden's comments are about his legacy. But there's another way to look at this, which, however rude it might sound, nobody cares. It's irrelevant. What he says now has no effect on the decision-making of the Trump administration, nor does it have any impact on the decision-making of the Western European countries or Ukraine or Russia. So in a way, he just wants to get his thoughts out there. And again, I'm not necessarily trying to be rude to President Biden, but at this point, he has no powers of persuasion over any of the stakeholders, including the Trump administration.
Yes, Ross, we have around 30 seconds left. I just want to look at a comment made by Xi as he's arrived in Moscow. He thanked Russia for their support with Taiwan. How significant is this 4-day visit from Xi, and what ramifications could it have around China?
The important thing for China is to show that there's a multipolar world. The world doesn't just look to the United States for leadership. That's what she wants. She wants the world to know, and that includes, for example, the global South, where a lot of countries did not take they did not take Ukraine's side in the war. They were either neutral or supportive of Russia. And Xi Jinping wants to continue to spread that message that it's a multipolar world and China has a leadership position.
Ross Feingold, as always, thank you for joining us. We will bring you all of the latest from the Russia-Ukraine